All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. My name is James Lee, Senior Director of Product Marketing here at Appian. We're really excited to be bringing you our quarterly product announcement webinar, talk about some of the latest innovations in the Appian product over the first quarter of 2026. I'm joined here today by some great speakers from Appian. I'll invite them on stage right now. Tien Bui, our Senior Product Manager, Mark Talbot, our Director of CSAI Incubation, and Kevin Gajewski, a Director of Product Management. Each of them will be presenting some of our different sessions later on in the presentation and everything as we talk about some of the new innovations coming out of the Appian platform. So thank you, guys. I'll invite you back on stage and everything when we get to your section, but I appreciate you making the appearance there. Moving into the content overall, firstly, I'd love to plug Appian World. Appian World is going to be coming up at the end of April 27th through the 29th in sunny Orlando, Florida. I don't know if anyone else is in the DC area, but I could go for some Orlando weather at the moment. So we hope to see you there. We hope to catch you at the conference so we can show you even more of our latest innovations, even looking a little bit further into the future about how Appian is innovating, how we're driving relevance and efficacy with operations and core process automation and general process improvement markets and everything. So we're really excited to have you there, connect with peers, connect with developers, et cetera. It's going to be a great show. You can check out appianworld.com as well as some of the recap emails we will send so that you can get your registration booked in today. Now, we're talking about the quarterly product announcement webinar, and some of you guys might have noticed as you've been looking through the release notes, et cetera, and talking about some of the latest innovations coming out of Appian this year, that we've actually changed our release cadence. We're starting to release new versions of the product more frequently. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to upgrade more frequently. We still expect a lot of our clients are going to be upgrading on a quarterly cadence overall, but this is going to help us stay even more innovative. It's going to help us ship smaller changes in our larger releases and everything so that there's less being kind of combined into total releases. And so you can see that over the course of the year, we're already coming up on our third release of the year. That's going to be at the end of March. And these are some of the releases and the capabilities therein that we're going to be discussing overall. Now, for those who have been with us for some time and everything, have had a chance to engage with our product announcement webinar presentations, the ones I've run over the past several years, your general recollection may involve that we go through a lot of the different capabilities. It's really a comprehensive review of what's within the release. This presentation will be different. We're going to be focusing on different highlight capabilities, what's valuable, what matters, how you can apply that today and everything. If you are interested in seeing every capability, all the features and all of the different adjustments and improvements that we are making in the platform, I can't encourage you enough to go and check out the Appian release notes available on the Appian documentation. This is where you can find and even filter to what capabilities are in each different package of the release, et cetera. But you can get a lot of your granular detail and granular information about all the different capabilities there. So it's going to be your great opportunity overall to get the full read. But again, this is going to focus on some of those highlights and really impactful additions that we are making to the platform overall. So we hope you find that valuable, this curated list, and we couldn't be more excited to bring it to you today. Now, getting to that curated list, overall, there's 4 key areas that we want to touch on. First of all, it's going to be talking about AI-powered modernization. Modernization remains one of the top concerns for IT organizations, especially as they're being tasked to do more with AI. So how can you rapidly consolidate and improve legacy systems, extend core systems, et cetera, in order to drive more innovation for your organization? How is Appian helping you and supporting you there? Next, we want to talk about AI automation. We're spending a lot of time on agentic AI and also some non-agentic AI such as intelligent document processing, but helping you understand where AI is providing a differentiated advantage in your automation strategy, automating some of those tasks and knowledge work, et cetera, that might have been elusive to other types of tools and technology, so you can streamline that operational efficiency and free up time for your experts. Another area we've been making incredible strides with our data ecosystem, overall the breadth, expansiveness, and use cases that our data fabric can cover. And we couldn't be more excited to show you some of those updates because I think they're going to be really impressive for you and unlock brand new use cases for where you can apply data fabric within your applications, even places where you thought you couldn't have applied it previously. So excited for that section there. And then a more general section around enterprise flexibility. Again, Appian helps some of the largest organizations with some of their most challenging, most regulated processes. So constantly we are exploring and looking for ways to provide you more flexibility, more control and everything so that we can meet your needs, your compliance requirements, et cetera, in order for you to do effective work. And we've got quite a few things there around UI flexibility, AI flexibility that I think is going to be really exciting to cover. Now, without further ado, I'd like to invite Tien back on stage. Tien's going to be talking through some of our AI-powered modernization capabilities. So Tien, let me hand it over to you.
Thanks, James. I'm happy to be here today to talk about AI-powered modernization with Appian. So to start with, legacy modernization means taking your aging software and moving it onto a modern platform like Appian. And we all know why this is necessary, right? Legacy systems are brittle, they're notoriously hard to maintain, and even harder to upgrade. The problem, however, is that modernization itself is difficult. And for many years, Appian has helped organizations to navigate that change, combining our expert services with our incredible flexible platform. But beyond just moving your apps, our position is that there's a massive opportunity here to consolidate. If you're modernizing 500 old apps, you certainly don't want to end up with 500 new disconnected apps, right? And Appian is that ideal platform for merging functionality into a unified ecosystem that becomes much easier for you to manage and maintain. So how is AI changing this modernization landscape? Well, while AI certainly accelerates the journey, it does more than just add speed in extracting requirements and building the ultimate application. It fosters alignment, especially for reimagining your new modern application. With AI, you can take requirements from a legacy solution, use those to understand what the old system did, and then rapidly help develop a plan for reimagining the future of your application on Appian. That ingestion and alignment piece is where Appian Composer really excels today. Today, Composer uses AI to help you bridge from your initial idea or legacy requirements to a fully modern Appian application. And it enables you to move from these raw requirements into a collaborative visual plan that allows you and your business stakeholders to understand exactly what needs to be built to turn your ideas into reality. And once your whole team is aligned on that vision, Composer helps you generate your foundational Appian objects to help you accelerate your build. And we're seeing real-world data from our initial pilot programs and projects that proves how this approach really provides value, not just through implementation speed, but through total stakeholder alignment. And we're seeing a particular theme today around the modernization of legacy .NET applications. In one instance, a global reinsurance company has been using Composer to modernize an aging .NET app and was able to take their typical Sprint Zero planning phase from 80 hours down to just 5. Similarly, a large-scale infrastructure services provider recently completed a proof of concept migrating another legacy .NET application and saw around 15 to 20% time savings across the board using Composer. In both cases, Composer didn't just generate objects. It acted as a visual bridge between IT and business, and it allows technical teams to surface legacy logic in a way that's easy for business owners to see and verify. And you can tell from this quote that boiling down massive amounts of technical complexity into visual elements enables teams to quickly connect on miscommunications and misinterpretations before they become expensive development errors. So these early real-world results show that while our vision for the future of AI is expansive, the practical, tangible value is already here today in helping to de-risk the start of your legacy modernization projects. So honing in on what's changed with Composer in the first quarter of the year, at a high level, there's 3 improvements I want to highlight. First, we're now allowing you to upload multiple files as requirements, including Excel, meaning that you can provide Composer with more and better context needed to create an accurate plan. And once you have that plan, we've streamlined the performance and management of it, ensuring that as you scale from dozens to hundreds of user stories, you still have a performant interface and it remains a joy to use. Lastly, we've also improved the AI assistant to help with your planning. So not only is it better, more effective, more accurate, but we've also exposed it on tabs like the process tab and the data model tab so that you can have a seamless experience collaborating and editing with AI on various aspects of your plan throughout the planning process. So let's jump into a demo of Composer and see how it's shaping up to be the cornerstone of our AI modernization strategy. So here we're going to step in the shoes of a team modernizing a legacy system for expense reimbursements. We will begin with the planning phase, which used to be a week-long bottleneck of discussion and requirements analysis. Now we can upload a couple of requirements. So here I have my business requirements document. I also have an Excel template of the previous expense reimbursement process that I used to have. And so here we'll just go ahead and upload these documents as context to Composer. And by feeding AI this comprehensive context right at the start, we ensure that the generated application plan is grounded in all of our existing business logic. And as AI processes these files, it populates our collaborative canvas here. Now, this is where we see the real value of Composer. It's not just a single view, it's a living map of the application. And we've been seeing teams use many of these visuals directly in real-world requirements gathering sessions with great success. As I mentioned earlier, these visuals are really helping to bridge the gap between business and IT, providing you with a level of clarity and transparency that was previously tough to reach. And to support these working sessions, we've streamlined the performance of managing this plan. So whether you have dozens of user stories or hundreds, the interface is fast and responsive, and you can easily drag and drop, click in to edit requirements, change acceptance criteria, etc. And this allows you to use Composer effectively during your alignment meetings. I also want to show you how we've made collaborating with AI even more effective. You can now instruct the AI assistant to update data models and process diagrams directly within the plan. For instance, in this workflow, you can see that expense reports are created, parsed, submitted. Then it goes through a process where it notifies finance. Finance has the final approval, and they can choose to reject or approve. And maybe in a business discussion, you learned about a new requirement. And that requirement was that reimbursement amounts over a certain amount, over a certain threshold need to be approved by managers first. The AI assistant is now interpreting that requirement and will modify your diagram directly, helping you to visualize it and work with your business to improve your understanding of the process. Beyond this plan, we've also made it easier to share this information. So now you can export the requirements directly to a CSV file, making them more portable so that you can import them into project tracking tools like Jira or share them for external stakeholder review. Then once we're satisfied and aligned across these requirements, as usual, we can click Generate Objects, move through the usual wizard to get this app generated. This includes processes, screens, rules, data, etc. And you'll be able to review your objects as usual. Once that's completed, you can see that Appian instantly creates these foundational objects for you. These are records, process models, initial interfaces, and more, allowing you to get a clickable starting point from which you can start editing. And this ensures that your project starts on a solid foundation that your stakeholders have already verified. And so for now, these objects are designed to accelerate your initial build phase by handling that structural heavy lifting for you. But developers will still be needed absolutely to review these generated objects and complete the majority of remaining work. But this is just the beginning. We have an exciting vision that we hope to unveil soon on how we're going to continue accelerating development to get you even closer to a production-ready application right out of the gate, especially with such a great plan. But for today, the ability to go from a pile of legacy documents like these to a structured, aligned plan and a starting point for an Appian application in minutes is a powerful way to kickstart your modernization journey. And with that, I will pass it back to James.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tien. This was really exciting to hear about, and I really can't wait to see how you guys continue to innovate on this. The thing that's exciting to me about Composer is how this is really, just like you said, the beginning of how we're going to be doing this AI augmented development. So really appreciate you sharing some of those updates, Tien. Thank you. Awesome. Now, before I invite the next speaker, I did want to plug for the audience. We do have Q&A available within the webinar platform. So please, as questions come up during the rest of the presentation, put your questions in there. We're going to be saving a good chunk of time at the end to cover any of those questions that you might have with our expert panel here today. But with that, let me go ahead and invite Mark Talbot up onto the stage. Again, Mark Talbot is one of our directors of CS AI incubation. So he is at the forefront implementing these projects out in the field. So I couldn't be more excited to have Mark here presenting about the topic of agents and IDP today. Mark, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, thank you for that, James. Yeah, as James mentioned, we're on the forefront of bringing Agent Studio and agents to customers to solve their business challenges, and had a couple of customers go live. We'll talk about one of their stories later on in this presentation. But yeah, happy to talk about agents here. So a lot of you are using AI in your workflows today, and you probably aren't seeing the benefits that you expect from AI. So you're probably seeing those slow decisions. You're seeing a bit of inconsistent work. Because a lot of times with this chat-based AI, if you have 100 users in your workforce leveraging chat-based AI, you're going to have 100 different approaches. And your experts might seem more overburdened today than they were before you started using some of these enterprise chat tools. And agents can help, but it's not from the sidelines. So it's not going to be from a chat-based agent where you give it a set of work, you leave it alone for 20 minutes, and you come back. It's going to have to be in process. And this doesn't just come from Appian, but the industry analysts are actually saying this too. So, I mean, these agents are losing value if they're deployed in isolation, and they must exist in a process. And we can talk about how this looks in Appian. So if you look at agents plus process, what you have in Appian is that processes are going to invoke agents. And then once you have an agent invoked, agents can invoke other agents as part of multi-agent communication. They can work like standard agents and invoke tools. They can connect to Appian's data fabric. They can connect to other processes. They can connect to other integrations. But with Appian, we're going to give a recommendation you may not hear from the other vendors out there, and not every use case you come across is going to be an agent use case. And in fact, a lot of times you're going to have process, and you're going to have process and control where you need it. So you can have process and control and invoke an LLM if you know how a workflow operates. And this is a pattern that we're seeing in the field. But where you need flexibility, so if you have this long tail of use cases where 80% of the time you know your workflow is going a certain way, use process there. But if there's this long tail of edge cases where there's hundreds or thousands of different ways a workflow can work, that's where you leverage an agent. And let's take a look at what Agent Studio looks like. It's a very straightforward interface. You provide it with a set of goals and instructions. You let the agent know what tools it has access to. And this is an example of our claims intake agent, which I'm going to demo later on in the presentation. But you can look at the standard structure here where, again, you have those goals and instructions. The tool, in this instance, it's a data fabric where you have access to your vehicle records and the type of coverage that they have. You also have access to Doc Center. So a common pattern that I'm seeing today is that agents are invoking Doc Center as a part of their work to have more efficient processing of documents. So it's not just the extraction of unstructured documents, it's having the work that goes along with it. And that's where you have the agent interact with Doc Center. All right, so moving on. So Appian agents are powerful. So a lot of the advantage you get is this secure and unified access to our data fabric. So you have that role-based access control. So your agents are only allowed to access the data where they have the permissions to access that particular data. It's also transparent and auditable. So you know exactly the steps that your agent took to complete a certain set of goals. It's going to be auditable. It's going to be transparent. So that's another advantage. And you can use that information to improve the agent. So if you find one particular path is a better path to the agent, you can do that in your goals and instructions. You can add that to your prompt. So with that said, let's talk about how our customers are using agents today. So if you all went to Appian World, last year you heard about Acclaim Autism and how they worked with our team to have 98% faster intake. So when Agent Studio GA'd back in 25.4, they reached out to my team and heard about agents and said, hey, we have a problem that we need agents to help this solve. And this was with their clinical scheduling. So what their challenge was that when they have a spot open up with one of their practitioners, they need the ability to quickly fill in one of their patients with that gap in the schedule. And before using agents, this was a manual process where they would have to go through the provider's schedule. They'd have to look at the provider's skill set, their every specialty. They'd have to look at their location. And then they'd also have to look at their list of patients and see how that mapped to their providers. So they worked with my team. We created a basic agent. It didn't take that long to build. We deployed it to production, and now they're using that agent for their patient scheduling. So this is another example of where they took away, this slow decision and inconsistent work that was happening inside of their processes, and they leveraged an agent to make that more consistent, to speed up the decision, and then free up their experts to work on other tasks other than patient scheduling. So let's talk about what's new with Agent Studio. So you can use agents as tools, so you no longer have to do that workaround where you have the process as a tool that has an agent, so an agent can directly communicate with other agents. So you already have that ability to have multi-agent systems. You can also bring in context and other data from those third-party providers, so you can have that secure access to other data. And with that said, I'm going to show you how Agent Studio works. So let me go ahead and bring that up on screen. Okay. So this is Appian's Connected Claims Management System. So how this might work, and this is a very basic example, we go in, you create a claim, you would upload the Accord document, which that's just standard information about the claim that the individual is making. You might also upload an image of the accident. You might also upload a medical report and a police report. So prior to agents, this might be a highly manual process, because you're going to have a claims agent go in. They're going to have to enter the information from the Accord form. They're going to have to look at the images from the particular accident, and they're going to have to look at the police report, and they're going to have to look at the medical records. But there's a better way, right? So what you can do is you can create a claims intake agent to essentially process the information that is manual today. So what you could do is you could enter the Accord form. Now keep in mind, for demo purposes, I'm entering test data manually, but in a production scenario, you could very well call this directly from another process. You could enter in the attachment folder. So let me just go ahead and enter a number here. That's going to be the brand new claim, 0121. And let me enter that same claim number here, 101021. And then we can click test to click off the agent, or kick off the agent. You see on this side, you have the goals and instructions. New in 26.2 is you can display it in Markdown format. This is going to be much easier for your business stakeholders to read. But you can see it's a very simple set of instructions. You have the goal. You have the information that it has access to in the data fabric. So this, in this case, would be the particular vehicle information. So you can query to see what their coverage is based on the VIN. You have the action to kick off Doc Center. And then you have the interaction with the claims triage agent. So how that would work is you would kick off this particular agent. That agent itself has a set of goals and instructions and particular tools. You also have the ability to monitor this. So for example, with the claims intake agent, I can see the exact steps that it's taking to accomplish its goals. So I dive into here, I see the agent history. I can see where it invoke the claims triage agent. I mean, this is all very transparent. It's very auditable, which is going to be necessary in some of the highly regulated environments that you all work with. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask through the question Q&A that you have with the webinar. Again, you can do the same type of monitoring with the claims triage. So if you remember, you have the claims intake agent, which does that invocation of the claims triage agent. And again, you can see that the steps that it underwent to complete its goal. So you can see it invoked Document Center. So again, that's a common pattern I see, where instead of having individuals going through Document Center to perform the extraction, you're now having the agent do that work. And again, you're having agent doing that higher level analysis on top of the Document Center extraction. All right, so that's our demo of Agent Studio. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take you all through Document Center and some of the newer features that we have there. So let me go ahead and get our webinar content back up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide here. Okay, so Document Center. So Document Center, as you all know or may not know, is #1 rated for automated document processing. And there's a reason why we've been awarded that by Gartner. One is that it works for highly complex, unstructured documents, because not every document is going to be a well-organized, structured document that might work with traditional OCR technology. We continue to improve Doc Center. So Doc Center has a lot of our lessons learned that we've had from past customer engagements incorporated directly into Document Center. So one example that I can think of is LLM as a judge. So that's a technique where you have one LLM perform the first extraction, then you have a second LLM that checks to see how that LLM did on that particular extraction. And what that allows you to do is to have more cases of straight through processing. So we're continuing to do quality of life improvements such as that. Another thing that we've added is the ability to rotate documents in the correct format. So if a document is vertically oriented and you need to make it horizontally oriented, it's going to do that, or vice versa. So going on to the next slide, one of my favorite features actually is the ability to split apart documents. One thing I've found on a lot of our engagements is that document extraction is not always clean. So you're not always going to have a stakeholder provide you with a document and say, this is a document that's a W-2, or this is a document that's a 1040. Oftentimes, it's going to be a part of an onboarding process where the documents are bundled together. So prior to this feature, you would have to build out that process to split apart the documents and then classify those documents. And now with Doc Center, that's now a part of the product. And so with that, I'm going to give a demo of the document splitting. So let me go ahead and put that up. Okay. So what you can do is you can click Run Classification, and you can provide the particular packet, and you would just simply click Classify. Again, you can have an agent call Document Center. You can have another process call Document Center. But for demo purposes, we're doing it straight through Document Center. And what you can do after that is you can actually go in and reconcile the particular instance to see if it split the document correctly. And you can see in this instance it did, right? So it can say that's a W-2 wage and tax statement on pages.
Hey, Mark, real quick, we're looking at the agent screen. Could you try the Doc Center real quick? Awesome. Perfect.
Thank you for that. Okay. All right. So here, what you can see is that this was correctly classified as a W-2 form, and you can see that the subsequent pages were correctly classified as a 1040 form. So what I might do is just go through and just briefly show again how we were able to do that. Again, you would just click on Run Classification, you would attach the document, and you would click Classify. And this is all in Document Center. Yeah, and yeah, that's the demo. And yeah, thank you for jumping in there, James. It's always useful to have that assistant from our MC here.
No worries at all. Sounds good. Sounds good. Mark, I really appreciate you presenting this time in this session and everything. It's really great. And frankly, automation is so core to Appian's value proposition and everything, whether it's coming to agentic AI, handling some of these more novel, complex cognitive tasks, or even something as straightforward as document processing with DocCenter. So it's really powerful, and I appreciate you sharing all that capability. And one thing I did want to kind of note as well from what Mark was sharing about is some of those new stuff with Agent Studio, not only the tools as agents, but that extending metadata. This is a really cool enhancement to how our data fabric is not just going to be valuable to our own agents to be able to get the context and information they need in order to be successful, but how agents and other platforms, whether it's Salesforce or ServiceNow or SAP or even homegrown agents, how can they tap into our data fabric as well, so we can be that good architectural citizen and really help the whole ecosystem of agents be more effective and more powerful in the work they're doing. And overall, speaking of data fabric, I'd love to invite Kevin Gajewski on stage. Kevin is the director of product management. He leads data fabric among other things. And so I was really excited to have his perspective here on the webinar. Kevin, let me hand it over to you.
Thanks, James. Appreciate the opportunity to chat. We've had a lot of great updates to data fabric this quarter. Today, I'm going to specifically talk about how we've dramatically expanded the types of data that you can incorporate into your data fabric. So why don't we get started? Speaking of documents, last year, we released a number of features around adding support for semi-structured and unstructured data sources into your data fabric, which most notably included documents and their contents. That first was for Appian managed documents, so your documents that you had inside the Appian document repository. That was great because so much of your enterprise knowledge and work gets done in that format. And so that was a rich data source to start incorporating into your Appian applications and for your agents to leverage. We've now added support this quarter for external document stores. So now you can connect to those different systems that you probably have a centralized system for and incorporate those just like the Appian managed documents into your Appian applications and data fabric. That means the metadata about those documents is synced in the data fabric alongside the rest of your business data. And we've rapidly improved the application design experience for incorporating externally managed documents into your workflows and your UIs. This is a really exciting thing. Obviously, many of you are already building apps that connect to your external document store, and I can't wait for you to see how we've improved that experience. The next thing that I wanted to talk about was the experience for connecting to sources that don't use data sync today. So we have a number of options for connecting to the different systems that you store your enterprise data in. And there are a couple of reasons why you might not use our data syncing technology today, most notably data volumes or security policies. Well, this quarter, we've added a new flavor of record type that allows you to directly access that source system via zero copy connection, but still allows you to leverage all of the data fabric features that you've come to love, like record level security, record relationships to join across sources, and custom record fields for transformations. This definitely widens the available sources that you might incorporate into your Appian applications, and you build these in your Appian apps just like any other, you model this data just like any other data, so it is a big improvement to the experience. We've also added the ability to seamlessly switch from unsync to sync and vice versa. So as your requirements change or your appetite changes, you can very quickly then get the benefits from our data sync and performance improvements and some of the other features as well. This is available for MariaDB and MySQL today, but be on the lookout because throughout the year, we're going to be adding support for the other database vendors and other systems as well. This is a long-standing set of requests that we've had, so I'm really excited to share with this community our support for database views as synced and unsynced data sources, as well as composite key support for RDBMS back record types. These are obviously a huge part of your enterprise data strategy throughout your organization and different applications. And now leveraging these as record types and allowing them to participate in data fabric is really going to make your lives a lot easier and add a ton of data into data fabric. Database views, because of the nature of them, It's a read-only source, but composite key based record types are read and write like any other database back record. So really excited to see that finally making it into the product. Really happy to share that with you. And last but not least, we've been making some major architectural improvements to our platform. And with that, we've been scaling the limits for data fabric and data volumes. Most recently in 25.4, we increased it to 50 million. Well, this quarter, we're able to remove the row limit so that you can sync the data that you need for your Appian application. We think pairing this with the unsynced data sources that I just talked about previously, you now have a much wider toolkit for connecting to the data that you need for your app. And I really think that the possibilities are endless now. Row limits are managed by your license tier, so please reach out to your account team to understand what your entitlements are. So a really quick speed run, but this is an important topic. So the major takeaway I want you to know is that in Q1, you now should step back and reassess what data are you connecting to from Appian, and how can you now incorporate new data sources that you maybe didn't have previously, whether that's all your documents in an external document system, whether it's sources that you previously shied away from because of different volume or security requirements, whether it's more complex data in database views or composite keys, or it was based on your data volume. You now have a lot more doors that are open for you for your existing applications and upcoming applications. And again, all of this builds out the rich data fabrics that hopefully most of you already have started building and makes them just even more important to your enterprise. And it'll be even more important as a secured context store or knowledge layer for agents, whether they're in Appian or third-party agents. That's all from me today. Looking forward to hearing your feedback.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you so much, Kevin. It's really awesome to see. I mean, whether it comes to process automation or agents, I don't imagine anyone doing much of anything with worth unless it's got the data part of the equation solved. And I think what's really key about the line that Appian is drawing as well is that, you have data in all these different types of systems, and you're not getting rid of your systems of record. You're not getting rid of your CRM or ERP. You also don't want to migrate data or keep these expensive type of ETL jobs running and everything just to populate data over the ecosystem. And at the same time, some of your lakes, warehouses, lake houses, they may provide you a great analytical basis, but they don't always support operations when you need to change data in real time and actually make updates to data, which is something that agents like to do. They don't like to just read information, like to act. So really encourage, if you haven't had a chance to incorporate data fabric into your implementation strategy, your application strategy, your next new project, I'm sure Kevin's giving you a lot of compelling things to consider about how now it can maybe meet those unmet needs and be really the foundation of your application success. So thank you, Kevin, for all that. Now, to take us home, I'm going to talk about enterprise flexibility, and there's quite a few different things that we are innovating on here, and I couldn't be more excited to share that. But before I get into this section, I do want to do another plug for the Q&A. I've already see a good list of questions going in there. So even if you don't have a question, maybe go check it out, see if there's any you want to vote for to make sure that it moves up to the top of our list as well. And we answer those in order with our live panel here today. Now, overall, when I think about flexibility, I think about choices, right? Again, Appian, with the way our platform is managed, you have those declarative inputs. We help make a lot of decisions for you, so you don't have a lot of paralysis of the analysis thinking about how you're going to actually implement these large-scale projects. That's why people are able to move so quickly with Appian projects, implement them at scale with high availability and good compliance and accreditation, is because they don't have to make every myopic decision about how the software is going to work for their enterprise. However, the clients we work with, these large enterprise organizations, they do need a good bit of control and flexibility when necessitated, right? And that is something that is, of course, sensitivity to Appian to make sure we deliver on that, we help and support that and everything when it comes to the different controls. So when we talk about some of these three different elements we're investing in around user experience control, AI control, as well as DevOps control, it's really feedback we've heard from clients, we've heard from the field that we are implementing into the platform so that you can have that managed experience for how you're building the enterprise applications that gives you that secure and stable and scalable foundation while still having the control and flexibility you need for your particular organizational requirements. Now, the first one I want to talk to you about is this idea of CSS profiles. We'll see exactly some of the terminology and everything. I don't know if it's files for the documentation there, but overall, what this is doing for you is giving you more control over granular styling elements within your Appian interfaces and experiences. So as you know, when you've worked with Appian Sail, the beautiful thing about Sail that underpins our interface and whole expression language and everything is it doesn't require a web developer to implement it. So when it comes to things like cross-site scripting, browsers, how does this work offline on mobile devices, Appian takes care of all that for you. However, with something like Sail, there's only so many sets of declarative configurations you can have to tune the UI. And sometimes organizational requirements want even more discrete control. They want to say, how thick is the border around an input? What is the exact red that the error color is, right? And so when it comes to those types of controls, we are thoughtfully exposing those as CSS configurations you can make inside of the administration at the admin console in order to curate a profile. This profile can be applied to different site design objects within the Appian experience to actually change some of those style properties of the Appian experience beyond what Sail at a default can offer you. So for those of you who've had strict style guides or design requirements and everything that you wanted to better adhere to, this is going to be a really compelling capability to incorporate some of that styling without losing your shirt from a design governance standpoint where people are just doing unfettered CSS throughout all the experience, leading to a code management issue, an experience management issue that becomes just as difficult as if you build it from the studs up, right? So really excited capability and improvement to our user experience design. Another area we're investing is around AI flexibility, and this is just one capability of many as we continue to realize our roadmap for 2026. But as you know, Appian has supported for years at this point this private AI paradigm, right? Through our technology partnership with AWS, we're able to keep all of the inference within your compliance boundary, which allows our AI to meet some really great accreditations around FedRAMP for the federal government, even high trust and HIPAA compliance, which I know is critical for that acclaim autism use case, handling some of that medical information that Mark was talking about earlier. But at the same time, as we talk to clients, right, a lot of times they do have these situations where they want to use a particular AI provider, right? They want to use Azure, they want to use Google Vertex, etc. So this is something that is of keen interest in us to help and support. And one of the first places we're starting here is being able to configure your own custom LLM endpoint. So you can configure a custom endpoint, and if you're hitting a Claude model on the other side and everything, then you can actually configure that endpoint for anything from Doc Center to Agent Studio to Composer, et cetera. They'll be able to send the inference that way to those endpoints and everything in order to power the AI capabilities versus using Bedrock natively within the Appian platform, right? So again, this is just an example where we're starting, but this is something we're going to continue investing in and everything, provide you more platform choice, more provider choice, and also eventually more model choice as well in order to meet any of those explicit requirements that you might have for how your inference is run and how your features or capabilities are supported that you're running through Appian. And then last but certainly not least is around release management. Now, I do have to admit this one was a tight squeeze for March, so it's actually going to be something we're expecting in our April release as well. So it won't be coming in March, but the April release. But I had to include it because I was so excited for this particular audience. When it comes to DevOps, you're familiar with this idea of creating packages within Appian. So you can package up your different changes for an application and push those through your SDLC, test prod, integrate with your Git, all that different type of stuff. But when it comes to release management and everything, what we're introducing is this ability to create a concept of a release, which you can attach multiple packages to. So if you have many teams working on different packages, they can all couple into a single release, and then the release itself can actually be deployed up your test process tool chain. So this is going to help some of our larger development teams that have a lot of different development pods and everything working on an application, finding creative ways to separate concerns and separate changes to give them still the ability to separate their packages, but still couple together this larger release that they're trying to promote to test and to prod, et cetera, right? So very excited. Keep your eyes out for those April release notes and everything when this capability becomes available. But this is going to be, I think, a great add to our DevOps capabilities overall. Now, overall, just to recap, we had a chance to hear a lot from the panel around AI-powered modernization from Tien, looking at powerful AI agents as well as document processing from Mark. Kevin had a chance to talk about all of the great enhancements that we have to our data fabric. And of course, I had a chance to go through our enterprise flexibility enhancements just now. So again, I hope you had a good chance of appreciating some of the new innovations there and everything. I'm going to touch on a few last notes, and then I'm going to invite the panel back on stage and everything, and we're going to go through the Q&A. Some final cleanup items. programs. DevCon, I know there's a lot of practitioners on the call and everything. We do have our DevCon event happening at Appian World as well. I plugged Appian World at the front, but please make sure to check this out. This is going to be a great conference. We have some developer-focused programming. We have our famous live build challenge being run again at the end of DevCon, so you won't want to miss this. Make sure to check out appianworld.com and everything to register, and we hope to see you at DevCon. And for our certified practitioners and everything, remember about the release showcase. We'll have a new release showcase going out with the 26.3 release towards the end of this month. It's your responsibility to make sure you do the release showcases, you stay up to speed on the latest capabilities in Appian to maintain your certification. So definitely encourage you to do so. And it's a great resource, again, for you to stay up to date with not just what we covered in the webinar, but even some of those other critical things that you should be aware of that came out of the release notes. That might be the time we have. I really appreciate the engagement from the audience. These were awesome questions that covered all the different aspects, and I hope you found it informative and valuable, this more curated, focused list and everything of conversations and topics. So again, really appreciate your engagement. Thank you to the panel as well, Kevin, Mark, and Tien, for coming and sharing your story and expertise and where you're investing. Appreciate all the work you do in the product and in the field and everything to help clients realize value. For any questions, continue to stay engaged with Appian, stay engaged in community discussions, etc. And again, we hope to see so many people at Appian World this year, as well as our DevCon conference for our practitioners and partners. Thank you again for your time, and hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thank you.